career.
Yeah.
The majority of the officer corps never goes afloat. Either they don't need to, or there aren't enough billets afloat for those officers to go afloat.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we could talk about low risk, high risk decisions later on about staying in or getting out.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 2001, we all expected to go to a ship, and your class rank determined what ship you would go to.
Gotcha.
From that change starting in 2005, where not everyone went afloat. Many went ashore first and never went afloat after that. And then in 2009, we had a commandant who was trying to get every cadet back afloat, who would double rack ships and that kind of thing to get every cadet afloat. But that's fallen off again now too, because again, the afloat community for us is very small and very specialized. So there isn't a lot of room for an 01 to go afloat if they won't go back afloat as an 03. So the world's changed. But right now, yeah, in 01, we all knew we were going to ships. Class rank told us we were going. Billet night happened in March. I forgot it was either before or after spring break. You put on your dress blues, you go to the O Club, and you found out who you were getting stationed with and what cutter you were going to. And some COs were there and some weren't. And then you went to the field or to the fleet. Afloat for us is a specialty code. It's an MOS.
Yeah.
And now we treat it more like an MOS than we did before. So you can go afloat and never have to go afloat again, or you can go afloat and have to make sure you go back afloat at each rank to go compete for command. So, yeah, it's not MOS driven. Like now I think it's either you go afloat, aviation, or ashore, depending on whether you go ashore law enforcement or ashore regulatory. And that's really the four general areas you start with once you graduate from the academy or OCS.
Do they split it up pretty evenly? Or, like, if you were lower of the class, do you get, like, the worst duty stations or the worst float duties? Or, like, if you're top of the class, you get the best? Or do they send the top of the class to the worst to kind of help fix? Is it just
it's
evenly?
not,
it's random? Does it seem random?
It's more, it depends. So they try to use class rank, but billets are really demand driven. So if you're an academy class, you've got two OCS classes that graduate ahead of you every year.
Mm-hmm.
So they suck up billets. So you get your shopping list, but the OCS classes get stationed ahead of you. So that kind of weighs in a little bit.
Gotcha.
If you want to go to flight, if you want to go aviation, you're straight going to flight school automatically.
Okay.
If you want to go afloat, there's not really, I don't want to say there is no bad billet because there's places I never want to go ever, but there are. But if you want to go afloat and do like law enforcement or anti-migrant or homeland security, you're going to go to Key West, Miami, Charleston, Portsmouth, Virginia, LA, San Francisco, Seattle. Like, you know you're going to one of those places.
Gotcha.
And there's some offshoots of that. If you're going ashore law enforcement, you could go to Detroit, but you would still get the same skills you would need if you went to Miami. So
okay,
I
gotcha.
There are bad billets. It's weird. I mean, there are good billets and there are bad billets, but at the 01 level, it doesn't matter.
Gotcha. So, because you're still in, what's been the thing that you enjoy most, or your biggest accomplishment since you've been in?
My biggest accomplishment was deploying to Saudi Arabia for a year. Now, when people hear a coastie say deploy, it gets really interesting. It's a shocker.
Well,
but yeah, my biggest accomplishment. Go ahead.
When people hear the word coastie, I'm sure it's a shocker.
Oh yeah. We're in a lot of places people don't expect us to be, and that's not some sort of black hat way of saying it. But yeah, I've been to a lot of places wearing a Coast Guard uniform, whether it's Beirut, Malta, Thailand, the Philippines, Argentina, Jamaica. I've been in a lot of places wearing the uniform.
Yeah.
So Saudi, I think, is probably my biggest accomplishment, because it felt like it was the one assignment my whole career had oriented and built up towards working for.
Yeah. There was some kind of back and forth talk between us before the interview, and you said that a deployment can either make or break a coastie's career. So how can a deployment break a career?
So me going on deployment was the reason I didn't make 05. And let me further explain. We know in order to advance in an MOS or in a specialty or in a competency, we have to get back into that community X number of times throughout. So, for example, in the afloat community, in our underway community, you can't leave the afloat community for more than 6 years if you want to stay in the afloat community. Okay. And it makes sense because of promotion windows. If I'm an 01, odds are I'll go 01 afloat, 02 afloat, leave as lieutenant. So I've got 6 years to get back afloat, or I can never go afloat again. Because there's just so few billets, there's so little opportunity, there's so many people competing for it, and there is a level of risk that increases if you're not proficient driving a ship. I mean, ship driving is inherently a dangerous trade. Yeah. So it's not the same in the ashore community, but your record when it goes in front of boards and panels should show development of your specialty and development of your proficiency. Gotcha. So for me, because my primary is commercial vessel safety, I'd already been out of my community for 5 years before I went to Saudi Arabia. And I knew I'd be in a high risk for not promoting by going to Saudi Arabia, but I thought that the mistake of being actually selected for deployment was a selector early that I would be able to survive. And I was wrong.
Yeah.
What I should have done was I should have left my staff assignment early and gone back to the field for another complete field tour to be most competitive for 05.
Now, is there somebody there training, coaching you on that, or is that something that you kind of have to figure out by yourself?
It's informally, you've got to figure it out by yourself. And, we talked about, mentors, advisors, and coaches. So I had a couple of conversations in 2012 with two friends of mine. One's going to be a fast track to 06, without a doubt. The other is also a fast track to 06. And they both sat me down. They told me, look, if you want to make 05, here is what you should do. You go to Saudi if you want to go to Saudi, and then you change your MOS from commercial vessel safety to law enforcement, and you go all in to law enforcement, get ready to work 80-hour work weeks, hustle for it, get the quals you need, and that will give you your biggest shot at 05. That is your lowest risk for not promoting. I was like, okay. And they go, if you want your highest risk of not promoting, stay in California for a full 4 years, then do your deployment, and then go back into commercial vessel safety, and don't expect to make 05 for doing that.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
And I said, well, it's not horrible because I'm already in 04.
Yeah.
So what's horrible?
Well,
honestly, that's the problem that I've written about, and that's the problem that pisses me off. It shouldn't be horrible. Yeah. Here's what should happen. You should have an honest conversation with Branch to say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. Branch will tell you, either you've got a 10% chance of promoting or a 90% chance of promoting. You make a choice. Yeah. But that never happens.
Yeah.
So you have to either have friends who tell you, or you get some sort of other cultural innuendo, or you see who didn't promote when promotion board results come out, and you start murder boarding the names of people who didn't make it, because at this point, we know everyone. Like, as an 04 in the Coast Guard, there's only 1,400 of us. Like, I think there's more 06s in the Army than there are 04s in the Coast Guard. We know each other. So we know by careers who is and isn't making it, and we've got a fair sense of why. Like, we don't know records, and that's the normal argument. Well, you don't know what's in the record. Okay, but I know what the assignment history is. Yeah. I know where their billets were. I know who they worked for. So you can divine what will or will not work based on that kind of environmental data. But yeah, I had two of my closest friends tell me, hey, if you continue on your path, don't expect to make 05. And I said, cool, I don't expect to make 05. At the time, I wanted to retire early when early retirement had been authorized. I didn't think I would be in 20 to begin with. And I wanted to take an assignment that I knew I would enjoy, and I truly enjoyed Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Why? What was it about Saudi Arabia that was attractive to you? I know civilians that say that they enjoy it because they work there tax-free. But I was in Afghanistan, and I just know what the Middle East is like.
Well, number one was the mission. So the mission, which unfortunately is closing down next year because it didn't work out, was the Saudis are supposed to help buy $1 billion. So most of what happens in Saudi Arabia, security assistance funded. Mm-hmm. It's a State Department mission, most of us. So whether it's the Coast Guard or the Army or any of the 5 services and who they work with, most work for the Ministry of Defense or the Ministry of the National Guard. We work for the Ministry of the Interior to help build a maritime protection force. And the vision was $1 billion of U.S. boats sold to Saudi Arabia. The vision was 5,000 soldiers trained in maritime ports, waterways, and coastal security concepts derived from the U.S. Coast Guard. So to be on a team of 2,000 coasties in country to help build this 5,000 member force in 5 years, like if I could think of myself as a consultant for a second, that is the dream job. That is the thing I would love to do when I retire as a civilian, is to go and build coastal defense forces worldwide. Like you can't, that's just something that you just can't fathom having the opportunity to do it as an officer in uniform, fully funded. So one of my major successes was to sit there and do this whole skill crosswalk of the MOI maritime training with American training to find out the best pipelines to develop this 5,000 soldiers, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. Like you don't get that opportunity often in the Coast Guard, if ever. So there was that. Saudi is tax-free and most of the combat pays are gone. True. Yeah. And then Saudi is very westernized. So there's a Popeyes in Saudi. There's a Krispy Kreme. Krispy Kreme is huge in Saudi. Steak Shack, PF Chang's. Like, Saudi is interesting, but Saudi is still very much wanting to be Western. And it's wanting to be authentic to its own 14 centuries of history as well. So really living in that environment and seeing that interplay was something as a normal coastie I would never see, ever, at all. Yeah. And then when things were happening in the region, like when the war of Yemen started, or when the president came to Saudi, or Secretary Kerry, it was awesome to be there, listening and learning about the news that was happening while you were there, in a way you wouldn't feel or experience if you were in America, or if I was back in the field at another port doing commercial vessel safety. So it was just an eye-opening experience to see how America really tries to train and equip its allies to be self-sufficient. And I would never have seen that otherwise being a coasting. And, it was the perfect application of my master's degree. So Saudi to me was probably my highest achievement.
So what is it now that after Saudi being your highest achievement, you're still in, how long ago was Saudi?
I got back in July of 15.
Okay. Oh, so it was recent.
Yeah.
And you wrote Command Your Transition prior to Saudi, right?
After.
Okay. So all of this is okay. So
we came out about a week from each other.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that I was on LinkedIn the other day and I saw another book that came out a month before me, and I'm reading the back of it. I'm like, this is my book. It reads exactly like the structure I wrote in, but it came out a month before. So I hope he doesn't think that I stole his idea. Anyway.
No, not at all.
But in the last year, you've been busy. You're the author of Command Your Transition, Declare Your Intent, Craft Your Mission, and Make It on the Outside. And obviously you wrote this while you're still in. How are you able to write a book on transition success so confidently while you're still in and hit so many important key elements about transition?
I wrote the book I wanted to use for my own transition. when I